Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode. This is your host, David Kim. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me, David, on the show. I'm really excited to be here. Really appreciate it.
Why don't you start off by telling us about yourself and how you got into this space?
Personally, I've been in sort of the African tech space for quite a while, about 12 years now. When I first started, it was very different from it is now. But I would say I was fortuitous enough to, I started an online fashion retail company. That was my first internet venture. And that business got acquired by sort of a Groupon clone. It was the biggest in Nigeria. It's called Deal Day. And, I moved on where I was CEO at that company. And then, I built that business, as well, became one of the top 3 e-commerce companies in the country as well. Eventually got acquired as well by a Swiss based consumer internet conglomerate. And then I moved on to Konga, which was one of the 2 largest internet, general merchandise e-commerce companies as well. I was commercial director there for a few months, and then co-founded Cars 45 not long after that. Built that as well to become one of the largest vehicle marketplaces. We expanded into 3 African countries: Nigeria, Kenya, Ghana over time. I recently left. I'm now, founded Autocheck, which is a Automotive Technology solutions provider. We're based in Nigeria and Ghana. We acquired the techie businesses in Nigeria and Ghana as well, which are more like they were the automotive vertical classifieds businesses. And we've since launched, and that's currently where I am in my journey. So it's been a very exciting, and I'm extremely grateful for sort of the path that I've had. Honestly, I never really thought that, it would be cool the way it did, but it's been absolutely exciting and extremely rewarding.
I see. Yeah, I saw that until recently you were co-founder and CEO of Car 45, but you exited and then launched the Autocheck business. So I quickly look at the background of Car 45, read some article and then and things posting about Car 45 story. So it sounds like a very interesting startup story. People say that the Car 45 is a very interesting success story with a drama-like exit. I know that the all founder in a different country, even in the different continents, right? How did you start the Car 45 as a co-founder? And that's the first question. Second question is, what do you think led the company to make such a great success as a startup?
I think in any business, it's really looking at the market opportunity. I think that if you're building any product or building any platform, I think it's really around sort of understanding what the market demand and market need is, and having the right kind of team to execute on that. I think those are the 2 most important pieces. And I think with Cars 45, was a function of right timing, right market, right product fit as well. And so it really had all those things in place. I think in terms of sort of the constituents of the founding team, we all literally had, in some way or another, had crossed our paths. And it was just a time when everyone was sort of in a transition period, and we just hit it off in terms of exploring ideas. We're quite analytical about the opportunity. I've always been convinced around the automotive sector and automotive opportunities in Africa, that's basically how we got off the ground.
What are the major problems you have identified in auto market or used car market, and with the Autocheck business model? How do you want to address this problem?
So, over time, I had come to, sort of closely understand the automotive verticals and sort of what I would call the industry drivers, overall the things that make the the overall industry successful. And some of the things that we realized was that, for one, trading itself, just building a trading business in itself, some of the big challenges that you have are basically the fact that I think the most significant problem would be the lack of vehicle financing. And so if you look at it from a perspective where, from our analysis, we had seen that a market that is very similar to Nigeria, for instance, Indonesia, is currently at 86% finance penetration rates. That's in terms of financing towards car purchases. China is at 76%. US is at 99%. Europe is at 98%. And compared to the rest of Africa, it's literally at less than 1% of cars transacted have any sort of institutional financing supporting that. And so if you look at that opportunity in itself, it shows that it's currently a $45 billion, our estimate is a $45 billion industry. And, at less than 1% access to financing, right? It shows that, if finance could really come in as a catalyst, that industry really has a massive upside in terms of the opportunity that is there for growth. So I think one is typically the lack of credit makes it very, very challenging. The second part of it, I think, would be after sales support. So if you build a unitary vehicle trading business, what you find is that there's a lack of effective after sales support. So you can have a scenario whereby you're providing, accurate data in terms of inspection reports and data on the condition of cars and the right prices, all that for the consumer, so the consumer can make an effective decision when they're trying to buy a car. But the challenge that you find is that, it's typically what we call like the horizontal life cycle of the car and the vertical life cycle of a car. And, on the horizontal life cycle, these are typically the things that you do. So assume that in a year, a consumer might spend, might have 13 independent transactions on their vehicle, right? You're going to service and maintain that car. You're going to renew your vehicle registration document. You get your car washed. You have some basic service done. You have some minor repairs. You buy accessories. There's a bunch of things that basically you do every year, every month, or you do periodically to your car to ensure that your car is actually maintained effectively. This is very different from the vertical life cycle, which is the transactional, when you're buying or changing a car, which in most cases people upgrade, right? So you hardly find people buying a lower model or make than the one they previously owned. So most people want to kind of like improve on the current car that they're using. But that transaction, in most cases will happen once every 4 years or 3 years. And so what we consider to be after sales are the things that happen on the horizontal life cycle of a vehicle. And so everything from how you maintain and service your car to the services that are done, what we find is that aspect of the business as well, or the industry as well, is completely fragmented. So the consumers aren't typically getting the best quality of service or being active in the horizontal service provision industry, such as workshops, maintenance workshops, warranty providers, insurance players, are completely disconnected from the trading process. And the reason is because most of about 96% of the cars that are traded in Africa emanates from being originally used cars out of Europe and US. And so what that means is that, you don't have a large structured originating body basically driving the sales, i.e. an OEM who basically is manufacturing the vehicles and is pushing them into the market. And that itself is connected to certain workshops and an ecosystem is built. But in this case, because it's largely driven by, small scale dealers accessing international auctions and importing those cars, what you find is completely disconnected from the after sales or support, that you would like to get as a car. So, that as well we've seen is a big problem in terms of the amount of cars that typically need effective, adequate, and professional services. And on the service provider side as well, i.e. the workshops, the maintenance, professionals, we find that they suffer from customer acquisition because they are not tied to any sort of transactional platform. They're not tied to any kind of so there's no way for them to source for, quality leads And so their cost of customer acquisition is extremely high and usually unsustainable for them over the long term. So these are just some of the problems that we've seen. Another as well, of course, is vehicle history. Without an effective after-sales support system, you're unable to get effective vehicle history and standardization. So that helps people with being able to, independently assess and understand the challenges with vehicles. So I would kind of look at it like these three sectors are what I would call sort of like, the main core problems with the automotive sector in Africa, and I would even add one, which is basically the dealerships and how the dealerships operate. So the dealerships in their strategy on digitizing any of their processes, in terms of the quality of service that they provide to consumers, very low quality in terms of the customer experience, adequate customer service, things like that. That just basically, when you go into professional dealerships, these are things that are very heavily focused on, but because this is very SME-driven business, small scale dealerships, all those things, are out of the door. You can't access warranties from these guys. You can't access any kind of consumer financing from them. You can't access any kind of car loans from them. And when you buy a car, you're literally stopped as you're moving out, right? If anything happens, you have to be the one to sort it out. So these are some of the problems that we've identified in the industry, and that is basically what we built out Autocheck to solve. And I explained in the short term what Autocheck really is built on, its focus.
You mentioned that only 1% of a car purchase is financed through the financial institution in Africa now, right? Then correct, 99% of a buyer, how do they deal with the purchase price of the car usually?
So what you find is that there's a people basically save up, and then of course accessing or relying on sustainable, and it's not scalable. So the most popular way is people would save up towards a car loan, then also relying on soft loans from family and friends. Some of those access less institutional funding sources, which are crazily expensive and highly unadvisable. Now, what we found as well is that the lenders in the market typically are flush with cash and are interested in actually lending to the sector. But what you find is that there just isn't any kind of support for lenders in terms of one, understanding the vehicle condition. Two is that understanding the residual value. So first of all, how can I independently understand, what is the value of this vehicle? Should I, looking at the condition of this car, is this the right car, the right price? Because it's a used car, so the prices are quite arbitrary, right? So there needs to be a way where they can be assured that, if they're going to lend on a car and it's say $10,000 independently, that car is actually valued at $10,000. So they're not typically funding something that is excessive. The second part as well is residual value. So being able to help them understand sort of what the depreciation curves are like. It's not just a straight science in terms of you applying one rule or one formula across all cars, because various cars depreciate in various ways, and depending on also condition degradation, that could either triple or double the depreciation acceleration levels. So we're kind of focused on ensuring that how we work with financial institutions to basically support their understanding around the condition. So we provide them with, because the software that we have is basically issued to car dealerships. Dealerships in turn ensure that they inspect all the cars that are within their location, and we upload all that information onto a platform that we provided for financial institutions. So the financial institutions are pretty much now relying on properly inspected and valued cars. The system that we have as well also helps them understand the residual value analysis of the car, combined also with the customer credit profiling algorithm as well. So all those three things basically built into one dashboard. So a financial institution can on one fell swoop look at the customer, identify and understand sort of that customer's financial health. They can then look at the condition of the vehicle to understand what they will be finding, the funding, and then the valuation as well. And the final part basically would be them also looking at residual value. So they're able to look at that dashboard and in one swoop, make a completely 100% online digital approval to the customer. So the customer applies using our application, consumer application, that goes to the financial application backend, and various financiers will send offers in for the consumer. Consumer accepts what they want. So we've been able to typically take down a process that normally would take about 30 to 45 days. We don't scale that process down to 24 to 48 hours, and it's completely paperless.
I see.
So that's typically a challenge in automotive financing, and I've also described how we're looking to solve it.
Yes, so your business model is fully focused on the entire customer experience, dealing with every step of the purchase of the car and then even disposal of car at the end of the day, right?
And customer life cycle.
Yes.
So what we do is that, for one, we provide software solutions to dealerships. So the dealerships, it's our DMS, our data management system. What this allows them to do is that the dealer basically can inspect all their cars. It's loaded onto a backend for them to manage their inventory, manage their business finances. They can also publish this information onto third-party websites to help them sell. They're also connected to social media. And then we also have a mini CRM that we built in the system for them to help them with their lead management. And through that as well, they can offer consumers financing. They can also consumers after sales. So it's an end-to-end business management solution we provided to our dealerships that they use to run their business. So that way we basically empower the dealers, but at the same time digitize the inventory so it goes to our platform, so the consumers as well get a great experience when dealing with us. The same thing I just described, we have a garage management system as well for workshops. So workshops basically, end for running their business, and at the same time we digitize that process and bring them online so our consumers can also access them. Don't forget that all these dealerships and workshops are also vetting to ensure that they are all of a certain standard, and we monitor the experience. And then the final leg, like I mentioned, is financial institutions. So we've all brought this information, provided it to financial institutions where they can then offer loans to consumers. So from a consumer perspective, you have one application that helps you with every single thing you can think of. And this is just a start for us, right? So for now, we've connected it to dealerships, we've connected it to workshops, we've connected it to financial institutions. And the goal basically is continuing to build a lot of solutions that keep providing, amazing service for the consumers.
I'm looking at your website now. Autocheck describes itself Africa as a 360-degree automobile solution, right? Including the trading of used car, insurance, maintenance, etc., etc. So in fact, I have been in the leasing business many decades myself, and then I set up a few joint venture leasing company, emerging market like Vietnam, Nepal, China before, even including Thailand. But I mean, in fact, every leasing company plan to build that fully integrated value chain business model, right? They have this idea, first page of their strategy, long-term strategy playbook. So my question is, I am convinced that you are building up that capability, I mean, in terms of the system and the software, in terms of relationship with the other partner, et cetera, et cetera. But my question is, how did you come up with this idea? I mean, because auto market in Africa is very fragmented, the infrastructure is still underdeveloped. So what made you think, what made you feel confident you can, I mean, realize this fully integrated value chain with the Autocheck business model?
Okay, so we had basically, I mean, it's exactly what you just described. The industry is so fragmented that for us, we realized that, we had to make a choice. Either we had to, we're going to be transacting, or we build the infrastructure for everyone else to transact on. And we chose the latter because we realized that, even though that's the biggest problem, but that's also that's where we see the biggest opportunity that's where we see the biggest opportunity lies. And for Africa to be able to accelerate in the automotive sector, it's so vital that this infrastructure is available to scale. There's enormous financial impact it will have on the continent in terms of job provision, technical capacity improvements, what it would do overall for the livelihood of a lot of people. And I always believe that the biggest problem we have in Africa is typically employment and job provision and creation of wealth. And I think this, because of the type of industry it is, it's such a it's something that could have so much impact on the livelihood of so many people, improve technical capacity, have a lot more foreign investment coming into the sector because of the level of transparency we'll bring. So I think the upside of what could potentially be gained across the board was very attractive. And we decided that, that was what we're going to focus on, because the way our system is primarily built, we don't directly transact any cars. We don't directly, offer any loans to anyone. We don't directly maintain any cars. So our success we can only achieve success if our partners are successful. So I think, and we took that conscious decision to say, we're going to build a platform that will be completely driven by, our partner success. And in a way that forces us to ensure that, we build solutions that are particularly partner-friendly, partner-focused. And we believe that, if our partners typically are successful and they're making money, we will also make money. And that's our focus, right? The ecosystem does better if everyone is thriving and developing, and we've consciously built our system to focus on that. So it's very big. It's very, there are a lot of problems, there are a lot of issues, and incredibly, it's the same problem we've seen across most of Africa. So we are, we're very confident in what we're doing. We believe in it 100%. And we are, we're definitely convinced that, it's not a short-term business. There's a lot of value to be created. We're 100% behind, believing in this industry, driving, developing. It's going to be a long-term play. It will require a lot of adoption in the market. But that's the reason why we focus on it, simply because we don't believe that the industry can truly achieve any potential without taking this step. And we've taken that as our goal and focus to ensure that we provide this so that other people can then thrive.
You mentioned in one of the interview I read, you said that if you're too desperate to make money, take your market share, you will end up doing the things that will make it difficult for you to even ever earn money, right? So absolutely right. I think I totally agree with you, but I'd love to hear your story and personal opinion about that.
I think our philosophy just really resonates around build for the consumers, build for the market, and money will come, right? I think if you're too quick to focus on that, the experience I've had, in building a lot of consumer internet solutions and sort of, I'll say, managing investor requirements with consumer and partner demands are very important. If you're too quick to sacrifice your need to make money with ensuring that your solution is actually solving a problem, because what you find is that in most cases, people then begin to hack things together, right, to prove that the model is working so that they're in some way generating money. But what you find is that the fundamentals of the business model are themselves flawed, because, in itself, a consumer will not exchange value for whatever they're offering. And so there are all sorts of hacks that are basically brought in to provide an appearance of growth, I would say. So the fundamentals have to be right. It's just like, if you give someone who's thirsty water, they will drink it and they'll be very pleasant and happy about receiving that water. So we need to actually find what the problem is in the market, create a solution for that, and you would have a seamless response from a consumer in terms of exchange of value. And that's just basically my philosophy around ensuring that, the first goal shouldn't be money and doing everything you can to make money. You should actually look at what problem you're solving and ensure that and if you find that your product isn't necessarily doing well, avoid having to create things to force the product to work. Actually take every sort of market non-acceptance of your product as a reason to go back and redevelop that product and relaunch that product into the market. Because usually what I've seen is that, it doesn't really, if you spend time really perfecting that product for the market, finally, when it comes through, it goes like a wildfire across the market, and that is where you see and achieve true scale.
I like that approach. I mean, I think this is the best way to build the trust with the customer.
Yes, correct.
Yeah. What do you have on top of your mind for the next step for Autocheck? I know that you just launched the company, and what is the end game for that?
So, I mean, right now, our focus basically is on ensuring that we have, we're growing our partner base very strongly. So our workshops, our financial institutions, our dealerships, to begin to actually utilize the software, ensure that there's a level of standardization being applied across the board. We want our consumers to have a wide variety of qualified availability of inventory. We want them to have large amounts of financing options to pick from. We want them to be able to access warranties. I want them to access quality maintenance solutions as well. So our focus right now is just on continuing to grow the network. We've launched in 2 countries, Nigeria, Ghana. We are bullish about expanding into a few other countries over the next 24 months, probably around 4 to 5 additional countries where we see massive opportunities as well. And fundamentally ensuring that our partners are happy, taking their feedback. I think this stage for us is really around taking feedback on our products, working on improving that product consistently, working on improving the customer experience. That's what we're doing. That's what our focus is. There are other opportunities, like I mentioned, but I think that any development that we typically would make would really be based on what the market demand is telling us. But we're very excited about the initial traction that we've gained, where we've been absolutely blown away by the product's acceptance in the market. And we're just doubling down and working hard. So for us, it's really around deepening our network, going into a few other countries, and most importantly as well, improving our product offering based on our partner and customer feedback.
I mean, I have one question. I mean, you mentioned that only 1% of the auto buyer, they can use the institutional lender. Then what is your idea to close that huge gap or narrow down that huge gap? I mean, who are not served by the institutional lender or financial institution going forward?
Yeah, exactly. I had mentioned earlier on that it's not that financial institutions don't want to lend. They want to lend. We've seen that they have a huge interest in lending to the market. But what they lack is typically a way of understanding. One, the biggest problem they have is how do they understand the condition and valuation of a car? So if someone rolled a car into a financial institution and said, I want to take a loan on this, the financial institution has no independent way to say, okay, this is a car I should be lending on because the condition is right. And this is also a car that is rightly valued. So I'm typically lending on a car where if there's any kind of default, tomorrow I can recover my loan because the car is actually valued at that right price. So that's the first problem that they have. The second problem that they have is basically the residual value. How does this car depreciate over time? And how do I apply this into the loan structure that I'm developing for the consumer? So we've seen that the appetite is there. We've seen that, and they know that these are huge portfolios for a lot of other for their contemporaries globally. They understand the importance of the sector. But because of the way the market is fragmented, it's just not structured for them to be able to do this at scale. And so that's really what we're doing in the sector, is providing the solutions for the financial institutions. I think once they have it in place, and once we started getting going now, and we started receiving approvals, that's what I talked about the opportunity. So our plan to close that gap is really based on the solutions that we bring in that makes it much more easier, flexible, and transparent for the financial institutions to lend. We also support them as well with recovery and disposal services. So they are not burdened by having to invest in large-scale operations around recovery of the vehicle in event of a default or disposal of that vehicle in event of a default. Don't forget, we have a very large dealer network that can consume a lot of industry inventory on a daily basis. So these cars are basically recycled back to the network in the event of a default. And you also find that, there are a lot of recovery agents. So what you see is that because of the fragmentation, there are people that are all around the sector providing these services, but they are unable to scale because, no one is connecting them. And so that's what since we can focus on that and that's what we're building, that makes it possible for them to lend to, and that makes it possible for everyone else to scale.
But at the end of the day, I mean, the financial institution run by the system and process. So with all that capability you plan to build, then you need to help them to change in system process. Yeah, that's the way, I mean, you can work together with the former financial institution, I mean, for collaboration.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, very good. The other question is, I learned that you preceded $3.4 million from the very diverse international investor. To me, first, it doesn't look like it fit well with the definition of a typical pre-seed funding, let alone for African startup. How was that possible? Who made that possible?
I think the opportunity that we're pursuing made it possible. I think that to everyone that we spoke to, they saw that the opportunity was there. And it's an opportunity that typically, I think the size of the opportunity determines the amount of capital required to pursue that opportunity. And so it was logical from a perspective where we had very big plans for the industry. We have very big dreams for the industry, and we require initial capital to get going. That I think would be fairly more significant than maybe what people are more or less used to. But I think that, the ecosystem is evolving very rapidly. And so I think that we're only doing what many others will do, in following months. I think that there's a lot better understanding of sort of the tech verticals that are high scale now beyond e-commerce. And we've started seeing good returns. We've seen a very big exits, across the continent as well. So I think that it's very natural now for, investors to become a bit more bullish if they find the right kind of opportunity there they're willing to support. And honestly, I think that it's a trend that we'll continue to see. I think that there might be people that more or less start it, but it doesn't mean that, it's exclusive. I think that it's just opened up because obviously there was already a trend of growing financing across the African continent. It's growing year on year. Larger startups are scaling, and you're seeing good success as well. So my view is that it was only bound to happen, and I think it's just the start of many.
Thank you so much for taking time to join on today's podcast. I can imagine you are a super busy person. You just started a new company, and then this is year end. You need to prepare for the next year. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks so much, David, for having me. I'm truly appreciative to be here. I think, it's very interesting what you're doing. Wish you all the best, and wish you all the best in 2021 as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for listening to this episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and share with a friend and drop me a review. Goodbye.